A very good day to you all. My name is Mitchel Mauyakufa and I am from Management and Science University in Shah Alam, Malaysia. Today I am going to be speaking on my final year project, which is titled Constitutional Safeguards and Access to Justice for Foreign Nationals Fundamental Liberties in Malaysia. Right, so this is basically an overview of everything that I'm going to be looking towards today. So we're going to look at the title of my research project and also look into the introduction, the objectives, problem statement, literature, methodology, limitations, and also recommendations, together with conclusion on this particular research. Right. So the title of this research project is Constitutional Safeguards and Access to Justice for Nationals Fundamental Liberties in Malaysia. So we're basically going to be looking at the human rights that Malaysia holds for foreign nationals in accordance to their constitution, right, the federal constitution. So this is a final year project for my legal research, and I am doing bachelor in law and commerce at MSU in Shah Alam, and my supervisor for this particular research was Madam Hafiza Binti Abdul Latif. Right, so we find that in this regard, right, this research aims to explore the constitutional safeguards and access to justice for foreign nationals in Malaysia. It also employs a combination of research methodology to articulate findings and highlight the significance of this research. The study will also utilize the doctrinal analysis method, focusing on the latter and the law rather than the law in action. This method involves a descriptive and detailed analysis of the rules found within the primary sources, such as the federal constitution, case laws, and also regulations. So this research is basically done in accordance to every law that has been established so far, and also analyzing it in that regard. We find that it aims to explore the constitutional safeguards and access to justice for foreign nationals in Malaysia. So basically looking at the constitutional federal constitution, where you find the fundamental liberties that are inscribed for the citizens of Malaysia, but also questioning whether these particular fundamental liberties are also applicable to foreign nationals in Malaysia. As you know, that Malaysia has quite a number of foreign nationals from different backgrounds doing different things. We have international students, foreign workers, including refugees as well, and also some asylum seekers. So there are quite a number of foreign nationals within Malaysia that reside here. However, the matter of their fundamental liberties is something that is not yet clearly established in that regard, where we are looking at the federal constitution in that manner, right? So we find that the objectives of this study involve to investigate the rights that foreign nationals have access to under the federal constitution of Malaysia. So like said before, we look at the federal constitution of Malaysia and try and establish which specific rights within the fundamental liberties already prescribed within the federal constitution, which of those fundamental liberties are actually applicable to the foreign nationals within the nation, and also to examine whether foreign nationals have access to justice over these fundamental liberties in Malaysia. So you might find that most of these fundamental liberties may be inscribed, but do they have actual access to these fundamental liberties? So we look at the law that comes with it, and also how the people within Malaysia, the foreign nationals within Malaysia, are actually treated when it comes to these fundamental liberties. And also we have to explore Malaysia's measures for safeguarding foreign nationals' constitutional rights and access to justice in line with international laws, right? So you find that there are international laws that are already established when it comes to common human rights, right? That looks at all the human rights that are applicable to every other human being, which is basically on this earth. So you find that we look at whether Malaysia is actually like ratified to these human rights. So you find, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights by the United Nations, etc., etc. So the problem of this matter, the problem that I'm going to be looking into when it comes to my research, right? So the problem statement basically looks at the unclarity of fundamental liberties. Yes, the fundamental liberties are there. They are inscribed within the federal constitution. However, it's quite unclear whether these fundamental liberties are for both the citizens of Malaysia and foreign nationals as well. So I'm looking at, do they apply to every other person that is residing within the federal country of Malaysia, right? So we look at the federal constitution does not explicitly state whether these fundamental liberties guarantee or extend to foreign nationals. This lack of clarity results in significant uncertainty regarding the legal protections available to non-citizens. So there's quite a vagueness when it comes to the fundamental liberties as per the federal constitution, right? Another problem is access to justice. So we look at the access to justice over these fundamental liberties, right? Foreign nationals often face substantial barriers in accessing justice. These barriers include discrimination, limited availability of legal aid services, and the lack of affordable legal representation. So consequently, many foreign nationals are vulnerable to exploitation and abuse due to their inability to navigate the legal system effectively. So one of the things when we look at discrimination, we look at maybe even the language barriers, right? You find that foreign nationals may not be able to translate the legal system within the country, as most of it is also in Bahasa Melayu, but the federal constitution is in English. However, sometimes translating the legal language to normal human language may be difficult for them. So you find that access to justice may be a bit difficult, and also the courage to even seek justice may also not be available for most foreign nationals, as maybe they are scared of deportation, etc. So you find another problem is international human rights standards, where the research emphasizes the importance of aligning Malaysia's legal framework with international human rights. This alignment is crucial to ensure equitable access to justice for everyone, irrespective of their nationality, right? So you find that in this regard, once Malaysia becomes a ratified country to these international human rights standards, these international laws, just joining in treaties and having these bilateral agreements to say that, okay, Malaysia is subscribing to these laws as well, and in being in agreement with these laws would help, as well as it would then have to align with some of the international human rights standards. So you find that there's a problem that as Malaysia is not ratified to most of these international human laws, right? So you find that when it comes to this, Malaysia only is dependent on the federal constitution, which is also very rigid and very difficult to reenact. Right, so you find another problem that we established, rather I established when it came to this research, the educational and awareness gaps. There's such a huge gap when it comes to educational awareness of the law in general, right? So there's a significant gap in the understanding and awareness of legal rights among foreign nationals. Enhancing educational efforts is essential to empower these individuals and ensure that they are aware of their rights and the legal resources available to them, right? So it is quite difficult, or there is, okay, personally, I'll speak on my experience as an international student and how, if I wasn't doing law, I would not be aware of some of these rights that are inscribed within the federal constitution. We are not taught, no one talks about it enough, maybe not just for foreign nationals, even maybe for the locals residing within Malaysia. You find that not enough educational awareness is provided for when it comes to the legal system, unless maybe you're found on the other side of the law, then maybe these these sections, these articles are explained to you in a way that you may be able to understand. However, initially, just living everyday life, there isn't enough educational awareness when it comes to the legal system. And for foreign nationals, this becomes a tiny bit more difficult, as they are just coming into the country to learn a bit more about the country, as well as everything that makes Malaysia as a whole, and try to settle in that regard. So you find that because of this lack of awareness, then most of them may be abused when it comes to their rights. Their rights may be breached or maybe abused in that regard, but they may not be able to identify or know that their rights are actually being abused in that manner, as they do not know what the law actually says about their fundamental liberties, right? So I looked into quite a number of different peer-reviewed literature when it came to this research, and there were quite a number of things that I also picked up in that regard. But you find that the literature that is there looks at the human rights concerns, right? So we find that the United Nations Special Rapporteur also raised concerns regarding the treatment of arrested migrants, underscoring the need for robust legal safeguards to protect vulnerable populations. The Malaysian Trades Union Congress, MTUC, advocates for fair employment practices and the elimination of exploitative labor labor conditions, right? So there are concerns when it comes to human rights within the country, which have also been identified by national organizations like the United Nations, etc. So you find that most of the literature also looked at the challenges in accessing justice, which show that the lack of clear formal immunity for refugees and the detention of migrant workers highlight the challenges in accessing justice for foreign nationals in Malaysia. The country's legal framework does not provide adequate protection for the rights of migrant workers, particularly those who are undocumented. So you find that undocumented individuals residing in the country do not have much legal protections when it comes to their rights. Some of them, you find that maybe arrests may occur longer than they're supposed to happen, and they may not be even be produced before the magistrate, as the articles within the fundamental liberties actually prescribe, right? So you find that some of this literature was also proposing for improvement. There is one which proposed where you can have an digital solution which offers practical avenues for streamlining processes and enhancing awareness of legal rights and obligations amongst foreign nationals within Malaysia. However, the efficiency and inclusivity of such solutions warrant careful scrutiny and refinement. So you find that there haven't been really a lot of improvements when it comes to ensuring that foreign nationals actually have access to their rights within the federation, although proposals have been made, but no improvements have actually been established, right? And most of the articles also looked at the constitutional principles which related to the rights of migrant workers to social security in Malaysia, which emphasizes the need for human rights approach in addressing this issue with migrant workers. Not just migrant workers, you also find that also children, when it comes to their education, you find that this approach recognize the importance of social security for migrant workers, which highlights the need for more comprehensive legal framework that protects their rights. So quite a number of literature was provided which looked at different things: education, work, refugees, asylum seekers. None much were provided for international students. However, literature has been written, peer-reviewed legal work has been provided, to speak on this matter as in that regard, right? So the method that I used for my research was doctrinal research approach, which utilized the primary sources like the statutes, case laws, secondary sources, which include peer-reviewed literature, right? And also within my method, I managed to analyze and using a critical evaluation of legal text, which identified the gaps and inconsistencies in the protection of foreign national rights. Right. And then when it comes to the limitation, so now when I was researching and reading peer-reviewed research and also doing my own analysis, I found that there's quite a number of limitations when it comes to this particular topic and also this particular issue that I'm raising today, right? So you find that there was a limited scope of analysis, whereas recent peer-reviewed articles encounter limitations such as limited scope of analysis, reliance on outdated data, inadequate analysis of international law, and lack of comprehensive data, right? So you find that there was a limit when it came to everything that has been written. Most of it was outdated. To find, within the past 5 years, what has been written on this particular topic, not much has been provided for. So you find that not much of these peer-reviewed sources or these articles that I was reading actually looked into the matter that I am bringing up today. And also there's a lack of discussion on specific rights and freedoms, right? So some of the articles fail to discuss the specific rights and freedoms that are afforded to foreign nationals under the Federal Constitution of Malaysia. This gap limits the depth of understanding regarding the legal protections available to foreign nationals within the Malaysian legal framework. So you find that when it comes to these articles that I was reading, yes, there is research that has been done when it comes to foreign nationals like migrant workers, etc., etc., but there's lack of in-depth discussion of these rights and their freedoms. They do mention, yes, the fundamental liberties which are found in the federal constitution. However, it's never really discussed in depth enough for you to understand where the issue is actually at. Then you also find that there's insufficient use of case studies or real life examples. Not many cases have been reported when it comes to this particular topic, infringement of the law, or maybe even, when it comes to fundamental liberties, human rights in Malaysia, when we look at foreign nationals, there aren't many case laws which regard, foreign nationals, and when, also questioning the federal constitution fundamental liberties in that regard. So the insufficient utilization of case studies or real life examples in some articles impedes the illustration of the practical implications of constitutional safeguards and access to justice for foreign nationals in Malaysia. Without empirical evidence, it becomes challenging to comprehend the real-world impact of legal provisions on the lived experiences of foreign nationals. So there wasn't really much for me to work on when it came to actual case studies and real life experiences, and it was also quite difficult for me to, find people, actual foreign nationals residing within the nation, to have one-on-one interviews with and actually hear what they have to say when it comes to fundamental liberties within the country. So this matter is something that limited my research, and it also limited my scope of understanding when it comes to real life experiences. Then also there's inadequate analysis of international law. Yes, the international law is there, but most of it was not analyzed within most of this research that I did. And also looking at all the laws that cater to these human rights was quite difficult for me to find, in accordance to the time that I had, the time work that I have, to look into these international laws and also align them with the Malaysian legal system. Right. So the recommendations that I came up with and also established within this research were to clarify definition of person, as the federal constitution does not really give a clarity on whether person is equated to citizen or any other person residing within the country, and also to increase funding for legal aid, especially when it comes to foreign nationals. So the government should maybe increase funding for legal aid, so that when it comes to access to justice for these rights that foreign nationals may be facing, they may not face too much of an issue when it comes to, payment, etc. So also another recommendation is to ratify the key conventions, where Malaysia should try and be a signatory to most of these conventions and also most of these international human rights that are established, so that they may be able to cater to international or maybe foreign nationals within the country, and also to establish effective monitoring mechanisms. So the government should establish these mechanisms to protect foreign nationals from human rights violations, which is very common. So if there is a set, establishment to say, yes, these are the mechanisms that monitor the human rights, where, foreign nationals may have a safe space to even voice out, the violations that they are facing within their workplaces, within their, their schools, their universities, or even when it comes to seeking, refugee protection or even asylum. Right. So these recommendations are what I managed to also come up with when it came to this research. Right. So basically, in conclusion, this research hopes to lay down a solid groundwork for a detailed exploration into the constitutional safeguards and access to justice for foreign nationals within Malaysia. The study highlighted the need for greater clarity and protection within the federal constitution, and the need for more resources and support for foreign nationals in accessing legal aid and navigating the legal system. By addressing these challenges, Malaysia can better ensure the protection of all individuals within the jurisdiction. So this research for me was a matter of asking whether the fundamental liberties that are inscribed within the federal constitution, you find from Article 5 to Article 13, we look at protections of person, liberty of person, we look at freedom of expression, we look at, access to education, all those fundamental liberties that are inscribed within the federal constitution of Malaysia. Do they actually apply to foreign nationals as well, or are they only limited to the locals or to the citizens of Malaysia? So this is the question that I posed, and this is one of the reasons why I delved into this topic further, as there isn't really clarity and there is this vagueness within the federal constitution and maybe the way that it was written. So my name is Mitchel Mauyakufa, and I thank you today for taking your time to listen to this presentation on my research regarding constitutional safeguards and access to justice for foreign nationals within Malaysia. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have learned something, and if you have any questions, leave them down below and I will be happy to give any answers, any responses regarding this. Thank you so much. Have a good day.